Yat sangyar prapyate stanang. Yat sangyar prapyate stanang. Tat yoger api gamyate. Tat yoger api gamyate. Ekang sakyang cha yogang cha. Ekang sankyang cha yogang cha. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Yat sangyai prapyate stanang. Tat yoger api gamyate. Ekang sankyang cha yogang cha. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Yat sangyai prapyate stanang. Tat yoger api gamyate. Ekang sankyang cha yogang cha. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Ladies. Yat sangyai prapyate stanang. Tat yoger api gamyate. Ekang sankyang cha yogang cha. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Word for word translation. Yat. What? Sankhyahi. By means of Sankhya philosophy. Prapyate. Is achieved. Stanam. Place. Tat. That. Yogaihi. By devotional service. Api. Also. Gamyate. One can attain. Ekam. One. Sankyam. Analytical study. Cha. And. Yogam. Action in devotion. Cha. And. Yaha. One who. Pashyati. Sees. Saha. He. Pashyati. Actually sees. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who, therefore, sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Purport. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by the two processes. By Sankhya philosophical research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the Supreme Spirit whole. Consequently, the Spirit Soul has nothing to do with the material world. His actions must be in some relation with the Supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter. And in the devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same, although superficially one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalang Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Trinadapi Sunichena Taror Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Again the verse. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Yeah, so this is again a very nice verse in the beginning of the 5th chapter. And before I start speaking a little about it, I seek your blessings that Krishna empowers me to speak something useful for all of you. And I also want to conclude a little bit about the topic in regard to the lecture yesterday given by Damodar Priya Mataji. So we already discussed this whole topic very elaborately yesterday, which was very nice, and she pointed out like the whole progress and evolution of Arjuna going through this development of should he act, should he not act, in which consciousness should he act, which acting is true acting, which acting is inactiveness in relation to karma and bondage. And my final question yesterday was that if the both paths are to be seen on the same level, then is the solution, like the goal, is always devotional service. And there Damodar Priya said so wonderfully that it is like this. It may seem that it's a different path, but the goal is the same, that we at the end of all this analytical study, this dry counting, Sankhya means counting, so counting all these elements of material nature, the conclusion will be that we are not this matter, that we are spirit soul, and that this nature of this spirit soul is being an eternal servant of Krishna. And that this is also like already the level of devotional service. that both paths lead to the same goal and are seen to be concluding to the same truth, but devotional service seems to be more potent because this analytical study may be related to a lot of struggle because you have to control your senses instead of engaging them. In the time due to you are coming to the point that you can accept that you are a spirit soul and what you should do, you have to control your senses, otherwise you fall back into Maya. Whereas when you perform devotional service in the first place, you have always the chance to engage your senses naturally and with happiness. Nevertheless, the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about what could I present today was this word Sankhya philosophy, and we all know who was very famous for propagating this philosophy. Someone of you knows maybe? Kapila Dev, yes. So that's another avatar of Krishna, the Jnana avatar, or knowledge. He gave a great knowledge. He was the son of Devahuti and Kardama Muni. And he was very, very powerful. He had great wisdom, and there's a whole part in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, 25th chapter until the 32nd, so very elaborately. He's describing very elaborately like the many different subjects, like what is the material world, which elements are we consisting of, what is pure devotional service, and he's more or less instructing his mother. Because in Vedic culture, when the son is grown up, the son can take care of the mother, and the father can renounce the household life and go into the forest. And that's what Kardama Muni did. When Kapila appeared, which was the ultimate goal of their relationship in their ashram, to give birth to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw no reason anymore to stay at home, and went into the forest and gave all his household duties to his son. And Devahuti realized that that spiritual life is actually so important, and wanted to use the opportunity to hear from her son. And I went through this passage because I wanted to find some nectar for you. And there was so much nectar, so I don't want to go to a single spot. Actually, I want to read a whole chapter to you, and it's surprise, surprise. It has nothing really to do with devotional service or all of that. It's just explaining how a living entity grows up in the stomach, in the womb of a mother, and through which calamities he goes through, and how painful is it to be born? Because we hear every day, birth, death, and so on. And we are in a quite stable position. We are all young men, young ladies, and it seems so far away, even though it's maybe not so far away when we have taken birth, but we don't remember really, maybe some. But it's said it's a very, very painful thing, same as being born. And I wanted to use this opportunity to read about this. So the chapter is 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. The personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. On the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the 5th night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum, and after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus. Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely chyle, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt, and at the end of 6 months, the fetus enclosed by the amnion begins to move on the right side of the abdomen. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. Owing to the mothers eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable. Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly and his back and neck arched like a bow. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage, without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births. And he grieves wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place. The living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only, because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. I am separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in this material body, which is made of 5 elements, and therefore my qualities and senses are being misused, although I am essentially spiritual. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entities, because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he is always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisances unto him. The human soul further prays. The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. This conditional life is due to his forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can he again engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord? No one other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the localized Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. He is present in the three phases of time, past, present, and future. Therefore, the conditioned soul is engaged in different activities by his direction, and in order to get free from the threefold miseries of this conditioned life, we have to surrender unto him only. Fallen into a pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body scorched by the mother's gastric fire, the embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, "O my Lord, when shall I, a wretched soul, be released from this confinement?" My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy I am awakened to consciousness, although I am only 10 months old. For this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with folded hands. The living entity in another type of body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perception of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body, and by whose grace I can see him within and without. Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen, to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy, called Deva Maya, at once captures the newly born child, and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death, begins. Therefore, without being agitated any more, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nescience with the help of my friend, clear consciousness. Simply by keeping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in my mind, I shall be saved from entering into the wombs of many mothers for repeated birth and death. Lord Kapila continued. The 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless and deprived of memory due to severe agony. The child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and placed just like a worm germinated from the stool. He loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya. After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of persons who are unable to understand what he wants, and thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances. Laid down on a full bed infested with sweat and germs, the poor child is incapable of scratching his body to get relief from his itching sensation, to say nothing of sitting up, standing, or even moving. In his helpless condition, gnats, mosquitoes, bugs, and other germs bite the baby, whose skin is tender, just as smaller worms bite a big worm. The child, deprived of his wisdom, cries bitterly. In this way, the child passes through his childhood, suffering different kinds of distress, and attains boyhood. In boyhood also he suffers pain over desires to get things he can never achieve. And thus, due to ignorance, he becomes angry and sorry. With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. For the sake of the body, which is the source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. If, therefore, the living entity again associates with a path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, he again goes to hell as before. He becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all such opportunities. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of woman. At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind. Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayan is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of woman. Just try to understand the mighty strength of Maya, of my Maya in the shape of woman, who by the mere movement of her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman, for such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. The woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting service must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Due to this particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly. In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. When the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occur, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. Yeah, so I like this very much to read it in the Gornitai Kutir, and even though it sounds a little bit shocking, everything, no? A little bit hard verse also with the women and with the men. But Kapila Uvacha, so that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, explaining in detail this what's happening in the mother's womb, and I think, at least I'm talking from myself, I cannot hear this often enough because it's very easy that Maya drops in and I'm forgetting all these things. What a great opportunity we have here, and how blissful is devotional life, and how painful is material life. And I wanted to make the turn on the circle round by making the point that even though Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study, maybe not the best way, spiritual knowledge is it very much. Yeah, so this spiritual knowledge counts also as devotional service if we try to gain more knowledge about the soul, about God, about our relationship, about our sambandha, like Damodar Priya said yesterday, like our eternal relationship with the Lord. And this will help us to get strengthened, to have a strong philosophical understanding and a good foundation. And therefore we should continue reading Srila Prabhupada's books. In my personal experience, when I read enough the books of Srila Prabhupada, there come no desires for sexual enjoyment, and if I lack in reading, this sneaks in somehow in my consciousness. It's very interesting. And I also wanted to read something from the Nectar of Book Distribution, because finally we have to engage our senses. And from my personal experience, this engagement in Sankirtan, in book distribution, is very, very strong and very intense service, how one can remember the Lord, because one is all the time engaged in giving transcendental knowledge to others, in this mood of the gopis, trying to bring others to Krishna consciousness. So one has to meditate a lot upon the Lord, and one has to think about the goal of his service and about the motivation one has in order to be successful. Otherwise one struggles a lot on book distribution, and this is called like forced surrender. And this is very powerful, because we might say we all want to surrender, but how much do we really want to surrender? It's every here and then there comes like a moment of purification, at least in my spiritual life, where I realize again, wow, I'm quite comfortable in my position, and there are so many more opportunities to be more humble, to be more compassionate, to spend more time, valuable time with all the nice devotees, to try to inspire more, to do more, to distribute more books, go more on Harinam, and do more practical service. So Maya is very strong, and for our inspiration, I wanted to read this forced surrender paragraph, and it starts with a quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 113. One may sell books or enlist life members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavya satatang vishnur vismartavyo na yatuchit. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make him forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. And at that point I wanted to quote like something that is Kapila Dev concluding here. So he becomes even more heavy when he's describing household life. But at the end of this heavy chapter, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities, he says, anyone who once meditates upon me, once meditates upon me, with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to God. So ein happy end, oder? For this happy end. So, the special quality of book distribution is that it forces one to think of Krishna. One can forget Krishna for a long time and keep on distributing. What to speak of continuing the service for years of a lifetime. This steadiness, nishtha, is more than the external execution of duties. It is a constant meditation on Krishna that is possible only when one's heart has been cleansed of anarthas, anartha nivritti. If one is not in that platform, the Sankirtan Yajna is a means of bringing him to that platform, because the means and the end are non-different. Selbe wie beim Chanten. The process of remembering Krishna is meditation, and he becomes purified by it. Om pavitra pavitrova sarvavastangatopiva yasmaret pundarikakshang sabhaya bhyantara shuchihi. Whether pure or impure, or having passed through all conditions of life, if one can remember the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, he becomes clean, externally and internally. It's from the Garuda Purana. This mantra is traditionally chanted at Vedic fire ceremonies, yajnas. How applicable then it must be to the Sankirtan Yajna of book distribution, which demands one's active participation on all levels. On Sankirtan, one has to think of Krishna or he cannot go on. Yeah. Haribol, Sankirtan Yajna, Ki! Transcendental Book Distribution, Ki! So. Möchte noch jemand was, someone wants to say something to the text that Kapila Dev told, some personal realization or some comment? Sanjay Prabhu, you want to say something? Please. You want the microphone? Okay. einen gesunden Menschenverstand kriegen. And if you hear such descriptions from Kapila, you get a gesunder Menschenverstand. I was thinking this. So in one sense, in itself, it is not spiritual knowledge. But it doesn't give knowledge of spirit, but it gives a good understanding of the truth of consciousness. I thought that is a very good point when I heard this. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, heavy birth. No, wollt ihr noch was sagen, Mataji? It's in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we read every morning. Yeah, it's the same. It's just the English version. Yeah, third canto, second part, and it was the chapter 31. 31. You can read it also in the Veda base. Veda base is very nice for all of you who doesn't know yet. It's all the books of Prabhupada online, and you can also search like certain words. You give a word, and then all the passages where it appears in Srila Prabhupada's books appear. It's very useful. Yeah. Kishore und Mataji möchten noch was sagen. Yeah. Yeah, the trap is that happiness is also conditioning. So if we become more pure, we come more to the level of sattva gun, and then we are more happy. And this is also conditioning. Happiness is also conditioning because we also tend to forget through this happiness. Yeah. And we think, oh, this will all happen, but not to me. I'm immortal. Yeah. 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 But there's this guru, Sankarshan Das Adhikari. He says, life for a preacher is like a candy shop. Yeah. For others, it may be hell, but for a preacher, it's like a candy shop because he is always with Krishna. He is always talking about the glories of Krishna. Krishna is always very close, and yeah, it's very auspicious. So Lord Chaitanya wants us all also to become spiritual masters. How? By understanding Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gītā our own, trying to read, trying to understand, and trying to instruct everyone we meet with that knowledge. So wherever, I just saw a very nice quote of Srila Prabhupada also, wherever you meet someone, you just try to talk a little bit about what you what you read in Bhagavad Gita or something. Yeah, we all understand something, and it all happens that we come into a situation where we meet someone where this knowledge is very nice to apply. And therefore we come to a very exalted position, and we can actually help people on the transcendental platform. And this is very nice. And then we follow the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we can be part of delivering the whole land. Yeah? Das merkt man immer mehr. One can feel it more and more. Yesterday we have been in Waldkirchen, and almost all people we were talking through, oh, you're from the Hare Krishnas. They know us already. Yeah, I even met one person, and he was here when they started to build the temple. And he said there was a problem with the government. There's this mountain here up, and he made some construction that we have here drinking water. But the government at that time in Jandelsbrunn, they wanted to stop it. They wanted to explode the mountain for some reason. And they were beating him up because he was working here. That he was telling. Yeah, so imagine what at that time happened. Yeah, so Kali Yuga is there, but it's also a lot of mercy, and everything is the spiritual foundation grows more and more, and with every one of us who is also more and more not even delivered himself from his abominable situation, but also tries to spread it, we are all working more and more on a more fertile ground where all this Vedic culture can be more established, and Sanatan Dharma and Krishna consciousness will be spread, and the holy name will be heard in every town and village. Yeah. So in Passau was the same today, like many, you're always singing in the street, and we know you from this festival, and I don't know what you're doing, I don't read, but I like this very much what you are doing. So there's a lot of appreciation, and we just have to do it. It's very simple process actually, and a joyful process of giving. So let's all continue, and tomorrow we meet at the Harinam. Tomorrow's Harinam from 3 to 6:30. Everyone is welcome, and we can experience the bliss from the spiritual world. Golokera Premadam Harinama Sankirtana. The holy name coming down from the spiritual world. Okay. So it's very late, I'm sorry. And Srimad-Bhagavatam ki. Jai. Let's take good rest. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.